They are retired adventurers mithril rank and above, but some of our enemies possess unbelievable power. The 6 arms are the strongest the 8 fingers have to offer. Each is said to be the equivalent of an adamantite rank adventurer. If they show up, we'll be in trouble. Of course, if we send multiple soldiers after only one of them, that's different. Adamantite rank, it was only natural for Nazarick to be stunned. Each adamantite-ranked adventurer was said to be a solo powerhouse who could face 1,000 men. Then let us ask Lachius to split up the blue roses, have them each take command at a different location. As long as there isn't more than one of the 6 arms at each location, that should work. There are 5 blue roses, if I remember correctly, the enemy's strongest number 6. When you take that into consideration, dividing our forces could be a mistake. But there's nothing that says they'll all be in the capital. If the blue roses are okay with that plan, we could raid 5 locations at once, so we can do all of them. If we could, that would be best. There were 7 addresses listed on the piece of parchment Renna had received. Nazarick and Revan wanted to add 1 more, making 8. They didn't have enough manpower. Of course, it would be extremely frustrating to pass over 3 locations, but I don't think we have a choice. What about heading for the remaining 3 after the initial raid? That is probably the best we can do. Your Royal Highness, mobilizing soldiers within the capital itself will be an issue. What should we do about that? I'll take care of it by talking to Dad, so I have to give up on the idea of doing all of them at once. I guess it was kinda ambitious, but a knock sounded at the door. Here we go. Normally a maid would answer, but since none was present in the room, Revan started to get up. Renna gestured that he should remain seated. He walked over and unhesitatingly opened the door. When she saw who it was, she turned around, all smiles, to face the other 2. It is someone who might help us with a 6th location. The one who entered Renna's room on her invitation, though he was rather puzzled, was the captain of the Royal Select, Gaze of Stronoff. Late Fire Moon, September 9 p.m. Climb held a black lump in his hand. The jiggly mass would have been spherical, but it was malleable enough for gravity to compress it. Climb took the strange ball, which seemed to contain liquid, and smashed it against his body and armor. The sphere splashed across Climb's white armor, creating a black splotch. The item in his hand had been a ball of black dye, so that much was expected, but that wasn't all that happened. The dark spot staining Climb's armor began to creep along its surface, eventually covering it entirely. In a matter of seconds, the armor was completely painted over. It had changed from sparkling pure white to matte black. The sphere Climb had smashed was an item called magic dye. There were supposedly higher tier versions that gave resistance to acid, fire, or chill, but the one Climb used affected only colors. It went without saying that he used it because his pure white armor would draw too much attention. Lachius called for all the squad leaders to gather, so Climb approached. At the center of the leaders stood a gorgeously outfitted war maiden. First, her enchanted sword, known to virtually everyone as demonic sword Kilinaram. It was the size of a bastard sword, but its blade, black like the night sky, was hidden in its sheath. Still, one could tell from the hilt that it was extremely well made. The giant black sapphire embedded in the pommel was especially opulent. It contained a sparkle that flickered like a flame. Then there was her full plate armor, gleaming like only gold and silver could. It was engraved, with countless unicorns here and there. This was the armor that only fair maidens could equip. It was called Virgin Snow and said to be impossible to tarnish. In contrast to her lustrous gear, the cloak protecting her back seemed to be grey cotton. The enchanted item, called a Cloak of Rat Speed, was far more powerful than appearances suggested. It boosted the user's speed, agility, and evasion. It seemed like her famous magic item, Floating Swords, wasn't activated. The reason Lachius dressed to stand out, unlike Climb, was because she had the magic skills to handle herself. The faces around her were all familiar to him, the Blue Roses and Gaze of Stronoff. To Climb, he was so out of place among them, it was pathetic. The operation Lachius talked about entailed storming 8 facilities owned by the 8 Fingers crime syndicate, but there were only 7 squads. So the leaders of each squad, plus Revan's personal guards, all former adventurers of mithril rank or higher, would head to the last location after the other 7 were neutralized. The remaining squad members would hold the initial sites. Eight Fingers members were to be disabled and captured if possible. Otherwise, they would be killed. That was the whole mission. Lachius continued with a warning. Since their opponents were a large organization with immense power in the underworld, it was possible they would encounter strong enemies and traps. Everyone needed to stay vigilant. Climb shivered. It wasn't due to fear, but the heavy pressure of the role he was to play in the operation. Climb had been selected as a squad leader despite being far inferior to the others for two reasons. First, he was stronger than regular soldiers. Second, one of the key participants had recommended him. Additionally, they set it up so the sole former Orichalcum rank adventurer team from Reven's men would be on his squad. He couldn't very well refuse when everyone had thoroughly prepared a role for him. And once he realized the hidden reason he'd been made a squad leader, there was no way he could give up the position. The Blue Roses, Marquis Reven, Gaze of Stronov, and Prince Zanak would be on hand to put out fires if a situation arose. Their presence alone gave no indication that Princess Rena was participating at all. If Climb, Rena's personal attendant soldier, was acting as a squad leader, the intent must have been at least partially to show that Rena was involved in the operation in a major way. It appears to have been Marquis Reven and Prince Zanak's idea, but Climb wondered why they would do that. Their reasons were a puzzle to him. Still, he was filled with the courage to masterfully execute this important role in order to spread the word that Rena was working hard for the kingdom. Lachius's explanation ended and the group dispersed. When Climb returned to his squad, the man who'd been behind him for a while addressed him nonchalantly. "Are you ready?" It was Brain Unglaus, whom Gazev had brought along to help. He was the assistant leader of Climb's squad. Squad prep is complete. All that's left is to move on the commander's order. And here is the route we'll be taking. He chose it. The map of the capital he'd been given had a red line drawn on it. Climb looked where Brain was pointing. It was one of the members of the former Orichalcum rank adventurer team who'd been assigned to Climb's squad. He noticed the young man's gaze and gave a small wave in response. Climb gave a quick bow to the fairly experienced man. Ordinarily, it might not have been advisable for the squad leader to bow his head. But for Climb, who was leader only in name and had no power to back it up, this was perfectly natural. In Climb's case, rather than leading the charge, he would be needing some hand-holding. As he mused, a large figure approached and called out to Climb, "Hey, Virgin, I wish you wouldn't call me that." Climb thought with all his heart. He sensed a change in the way his squad mates were looking at him. He was probably lucky no one was laughing. Among the warm gazes and watchful eyes of adults, he also sensed some strong solidarity. "What is it, Miss Gagarin?" Unlike when he'd seen her at the inn, she was enveloped head to toe in top-class magic items. There was a crest, like an eye emblazoned on the chest piece of her spiked, dark red full-plate armor. It was the famous equipment Gaze Bane. Her gauntlets were a bit unusual. They had carvings of a pair of entwined snakes. They were an ancient rarity. They healed whomever they touched. They were called caduceus gauntlets. The huge war pick hanging from her hip was Iron Fella. The splendid red cape, fit for royalty or nobility, was Crimson Guardian. She also carried a vest of resistance, a dragon tooth amulet, and a belt of greater power, though they weren't visible beneath her armor. Besides that, she had wing boots and a twister circlet equipped. Her rings also contained immense magical power. This was Gagarin, the pinnacle of the kingdom's warriors, in full gear. The price of even one of her items would make anyone's eyes pop. Only an adamantite rank adventurer could possess so many. Everly, Tia, and Tina were outfitted similarly, with items that could be identified at a glance as ultra-rare. What? I just thought I'd give the Virgin a little spanking, since he might be nervous. That actually meant she had reached out, because she was worried about him, but he still wanted her to knock off the whole Virgin thing. He could have lost his virginity anytime. There were places for that. He simply hadn't yet. Still crying softly in his heart, Climb saw Gagarin look at Brain next to him with an unusually sharp gaze. Brain Unglaus, the man who fought neck and neck with the captain of the Royal Select. Aha, so they weren't lying or exaggerating, huh? Warrior of the Blue Roses, Gagarin, I see you race strong, certainly worthy of an adamantite ranked team. So do I pass? When Climb looked at Brain, wondering what the passing thing was about, he shrugged and told him why Gagarin had really come over. She came to make sure I am strong enough to take care of you. Really? No, come on, it has nothing to do with you. It just seems sad for him to die with his virginity intact. So I thought if we had time, I'd steal it quick. But anyhow, I see it was no fluke that you beat the illusion maniac. You're an awe-inspiring warrior. I can tell even without crossing swords. With you around, we'll have some breathing room. I am glad you feel that way. I've also learned the rumors about you were true. But we can let our guard down. There are plenty of monsters in this world who can kill even warriors like us in an instant. Oh, so you the cautious type. I can say I dislike men like that. You probably not a virgin, but how about it? I'll pass. I think the pressure would crush me. Where would she crush him? Climb wondered, but didn't he ask? Oh, that is too bad. Climb, take care. Gagarin waved goodbye and walked away with heavy footsteps. Watching her go, Brain murmured, you would never guess from the way she looks, but she's a rather kind person. Yeah, Gagarin, well, all the blue roses are friendly. Miss Everly looks mysterious, but she's surprisingly nice too. The masked arcane caster. Actually, Gazef was saying that Ain't Ool Gown, the fellow he met, wore a mask. Too, I wonder if they the hip thing among casters. Oh, seems like we on the move. Yeah. The squad's traveling farther have to leave now. This will ensure the raids happen at the same time. They were both looking at the departing units up ahead. Climb looked around, searching for a certain woman. Of course, he couldn't find her. She would be coordinating with Prince Zanak. He figured it was self-centered of him to feel melancholy just because he couldn't see her before leaving. This was especially true given how hard things were for her. Okay, Climb, should we go too? Yes. Let us head out. Climb gave his squad the sortie order. Climb was the assistant leader. Brain Unglaus was with them. 4 former Orichalcum rank adventurers were also in the squad. 20 members of Marquis Reven's militia were present. High-level priests and wizards guild members with connections to Marquis Reven were tagging along to support from the rear. A total of 32 people quietly set out. Late Fire Moon, September 8:31 p.m. I didn't expect such a strong lineup. I must thank Lord Aints. Those were the first words Sebas uttered upon meeting the group at the mansion. Demiurge led the assembly. The Guardians, Sholtia and Mare were also present. The Pleiades had provided Solution and Entoma. Moreover, several of Demiurge's high-level evil lord minions were present. It was an unbelievably powerful force, perhaps even overkill, especially to have the 2 strongest Guardians with us. Lord Aints has granted me full authority, Demiurge said. Do you have any objections, Sebas? Of course not. Then I would ask that you not misunderstand. Lord Aints did say to rescue the human Suya, but the more important reason we are gathered is to execute the foolish 8 fingers who spat upon the incomparable visages of the supreme beings. I understand. Saving Suya is a secondary objective, correct? Exactly, although I do approve of your desire to retrieve her while she is alive. I doubt she would be able to withstand resurrection magic. That was a nasty way to put it. Still, what to do in the event she is already dead is certainly an issue. If I were them, I'd chuck the hostage's head at us the moment we foolishly arrived. But wouldn't you rather abuse her to set an example, Demiurge? Yes, as you say, without a doubt. Mobilize the rescuers and then put her abuse on display. What an extremely invigorating scenario. What's exciting about it? Sebas asked, concealing his irritation beneath a smile. Of course, with Demiurge's powers of observation, he probably saw through it, so it was just for show. Everything, Sebas, everything. Demiurge grinned, and his fisher-like eyes gleamed coldly. Actually, I'd let the people who came to save the prisoner take her and escape. Then we turned the tables just when they were starting to feel relieved. The greater the hope, the greater the despair. That seems entertaining as well. If we get the chance, let us do something like that, shall we? But if they really got away, I think wouldn't that be a problem? Demiurge and Sholtia laughed. Mare, you so funny. We make that impossible. Well, if they really did manage to escape, I'd send them off with applause. You so confident, because you never let them break through, right? I'd expect nothing less from you, Demiurge. Though they didn't have time to spare, Demiurge chattered on about tormenting humans. That irritated Sebas, so he asked a pointed question to end the conversation. Demiurge, about executing the 8 Fingers members, do you already have the information we need? Yes, no worries there, Sebas. The intelligence has been acquired. Ooh, some cooed in admiration. Sebas himself even exclaimed in surprise. Demiurge hadn't he been in the capital very long. Sebas couldn't he imagine what methods he'd used to gather the data so quickly. Considering he was operating under their master's orders, he couldn't he be relying on rumors. It had to be confirmed reports. All we have to do now is raid the locations, yes, plural. Of course, if possible, we should capture multiple people with intelligence at each location. We can then punish them for the other foolish acts they committed. He cut off there, glanced at Sebas, and continued, in order to deal them suitable damage in exchange for sullying the promise sworn on Lord Aintz's supreme, radiant name, we need to get some information out of them. Any objections? No, they'll pay with their lives for offending Lord Aintz's. How could I object? The two guardians and the butler replied in turn. The two combat maids and the demon lord said nothing, but assumed a humble posture toward Demiurge. Very good. Then first, Sebas, could you tell us the location to which you've been summoned? Let us see if it's among the ones I have here. When Sebas named the place written on the parchment back at his house, Demiurge smiled. Should we call it good luck, or should we lament that we have one fewer location to raid? It seems to overlap with the list I looked into. I'll leave that one up to you. That's fine. But Tsuya may be injured. It would be helpful if someone who can use healing magic came along. True, it's Lord Aintz's wish to save that human solution. I originally wanted to keep you and your superior searching skill on reserve, but will you accompany Sebas as support? Yes, Master Demiurge. And as for the people who kidnapped her, who will most likely be in the building, if you spare any of the humans who besmirched Lord Aintz's honor, I really will murder you, Demiurge said. Don't worry, Demiurge. I'll be sure to kill them all, Sebas replied. I've been watching you guys for a while now. Couldn't you be a bit more friendly with each other? Out of the corner of his eye, Sebas saw Demiurge pull a face. At the same time, he was probably making the same face himself. But when he asked himself why he disliked Demiurge, he couldn't quite pin it down. He didn't get irritated at Sholtia, even though she was a sadist too. For some reason, talking to Demiurge annoyed him. Still, quarreling with him now would be as good as spitting on the kindness of the Supreme Being. Sebas thanked their master in his head and bowed to Demiurge. My humble apologies for taking a rude tone when you've come to help me fix my own mistake. That's fine, Sebas. Anyway, would you evacuate Tsuya to the great tomb of Nazarick as soon as you recover her? Of course, but is everyone ready to accept her? That will be no problem. I have that covered, Intoma said in a syrupy voice. Sebas nodded, convinced. So no other issues at the moment, correct? Excellent. Now we'll split into 7 teams and decide who attacks where. Of course, Sebas and Solution are already set. First, I'd like to make sure we raid being careful Sholtia. Sholtia jumped at Demiurge's suddenly harsh tone. What is it, Demiurge? I'd like you to stand by as a reserve. You lose yourself when you get too much blood on you. It'll be a pain if you encounter a mob of easy pickings and go berserk. I am fine. If I suck up all the blood with my pipette lance, the chance that happens goes way down. No, that is not good enough. We need to proceed with extreme caution here and do everything we can to avoid taking risks. And Sebas, I need to apologize in advance. This operation to save Tsuya and bring the iron hammer down on the 8 fingers is only the first phase of a larger plan. But I cannot disclose the full details or even what happens in Phase 2, because after Phase 1 is complete, you'll return to Nazarick and not be involved. To avoid intelligence leaks, it's better to keep the number of people who know to a minimum. I understand. I'll begin getting my preparations underway. Once Sebas had left the room, Demiurge addressed the remainder. Okay. First, I'll give you an outline so we don't miss anything. In Toma, you can create illusions, right? Can you do one to my specifications? Yes, sir. Entoma made a virtual image in empty space according to Demiurge's detailed request. He was satisfied with the result. Killing this person is prohibited. Some wounds will likely be forgiven, but I want everyone to remember that on principle, harming the target is forbidden, especially Sholtia. I understand. You don't need to harp on it. She didn't enjoy the repeated rebuke and puffed her cheeks out in displeasure. Mare smiled awkwardly. You didn't need to tell Sebas. It's okay. Knowing Sebas, he won't harm this person without good reason. Just in case, Solution, can you stop him in an emergency? Understood. Demiurge nodded in satisfaction. This operation was tied to a plan that would benefit Nazarick enormously. If they suffered a major defeat here, it was possible the Supreme One, Aints Ul Gaun, would be delayed from reaching his unspoken ultimate goal, world conquest. The master had left the entire operation up to him, so failure wasn't an option. Albedo had been stern with him about it as well. It was clear that because Shaltia, Cocytus, and Sebas had all failed one after the other, any further blunders could cause their master to doubt the Guardian's abilities. True, Lord Aints had yet to display displeasure at any of those failures, and Cocytus' seemed to have been planned from the beginning. But that didn't make it right to take advantage of his kindness. With this mission, I must demonstrate to Lord Aints that we Guardians can be of use to him. Was there any point in subordinates existing if they were foolish and failed to perform satisfactorily? Wasn't it possible the last remaining Supreme One would be disgusted with their worthless abilities and also leave them? Even Demiurge was petrified by the thought. Failure is not an option.